Good morning. My name is Victor Landa. I'm the District 6 Communications Director, and I'd like to welcome you to this morning's virtual town hall meeting. We'll be discussing CPS Energy's rate proposal. Now, this meeting was originally scheduled to be in person, but because of the COVID Omicron variant surge, Councilwoman Cabello Havrda decided that for health and safety reasons, the meeting should be virtual. So our thanks go to the CPS Energy team as well as the District 6 staff for their work in making this change in short order and doing all that was needed for this to happen this morning. Now, I'm going to take care of a little bit of housekeeping. I'm going to tell you how this meeting is going to proceed. Now, first, I'm going to tell you how you can participate and how you can ask questions of the panelists. Then after that, I'm going to introduce the panel, and I'm going to hand the floor or the screen to Councilwoman Cabello Havrda for her welcoming remarks. And then we're going to hear from CPS leadership, and then we'll open the meeting for questions. So first things first, how can you ask questions? Well, the simple way is to add your question to the meeting chat. There is an icon at the bottom right corner of your screen. There's a quote bubble, and next to it is the word chat. Just click on that and you can add your questions there. We have a team of CPS and D6 folks that are keeping an eye out for questions. There was a link that was made available prior to today where community had an opportunity to submit their questions in advance. We'll be taking some questions from that queue as well. So, to introduce this morning's panel, we have District 6 Councilwoman Melissa Cabello Havrda. We have CPS Energy Interim CEO, Mr. Rudy Garza, and CPS Energy CFO and Treasurer, Mr. Cory Kuchinsky. So let's get started. Councilwoman, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you, Victor, and good morning to everyone who's joined us today. I'm your District 6 Councilwoman, Melissa Cabello Havrda, and of course I want to thank you and welcome you to this very important community meeting. Very well timed. Some of you may know that we are looking at a vote about the rate increase this coming Thursday, so just in a matter of days. This, in many ways, is an extension of what the District 6 team and I have been doing for several months. We've been talking to the community, listening to your ideas, needs, and concerns. We've had the CPS energy rate increase request discussion daily. We're talking to people all over the place. When I meet you out in the district, when we chat on the phone, of course, I'm reading your emails. And I want to make sure to recognize the CPS Customer Response Unit. They've been out at our field office and they've made it a point to keep scheduled office hours out there. And it has made a huge difference to have them sharing our space, meeting with you where you live. So if you come to our District 6 field office, you can also meet with a customer response unit person from CPS. And they've been a great addition to the office. Your questions, ideas, and concerns regarding the rate increase come down to three things. These are my questions as a citizen of this city as well, and this is really what I would like to see. Number one, what is the money collected through this proposed rate change going to be used for? How are we using the money, the difference in the increase? How do we keep CPS Energy accountable to perform what they're saying they're going to do with the proposed rate increase? And then how can we trust CPS Energy after Winter Storm Uri? Those are difficult questions, but they're honest questions, and they're questions that we all as citizens of San Antonio need answers to. And remind you all that CPS Energy employees are also citizens of San Antonio, so they want these answers as well, and they've been working really closely with the council and in my office to ensure that we have the answers to those questions. My office is working hard on answering those questions for you, with you. And yesterday I sent a letter to the CPS Energy Interim CEO, Mr. Rudy Garza, who's here today this morning. Good morning, Rudy. Asking him and his team to put together a detailed audit of their organization's finances and management practices. I made the request because I believe that before we take any steps forward, we must have trust and transparency, and a complete audit will help us rebuild trust and transparency. I've had great conversations with Rudy about this, and I'm excited about moving forward with that. Also, we're making sure that meetings like this will answer your questions, address your concerns. The three things I want to emphasize always are trust, transparency, and accountability. I'm counting on the District 6 community to help me make that happen. And again, thank you all for being here this morning. I'm glad, I would much prefer, of course, to see everybody in person, but I'm glad, given the weather and the new, I guess, addition to our pandemic concerns, that everybody's home and safe. So I'll now pass the microphone back to Victor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilwoman. And I'm going to do a quick passing of the microphone now to Mr. Rudy Garza. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Victor, and Councilwoman. Thank you very much for your leadership and for how you represent the citizens of your district in District 6. I want to reassure your residents, your constituents, our customers that the things that we've been talking about, accountability, transparency, making sure that we're doing the right things for our community, for our customers, and the service we provide. CPS Energy is absolutely a critical infrastructure of San Antonio. As the winter storm taught us, life gets real difficult when CPS Energy is not able to do their jobs in providing electric and gas service to our community. And so all the things that you're focused on, Councilwoman, are absolutely focuses of mine and my leadership team at CPS Energy. I do believe that we have a strong culture of accountability. We do audits every day at CPS Energy that we're looking for ways to put out there so the community recognizes that we are constantly challenging ourselves to be the best that we can be. I want to reassure you that I'm open to any opportunities we have to work together to ensure that our community we rebuild that trust. I know that February was difficult. I understand that we have to do better. There have been committees, that we've dealt with, for the last year. The Rate Advisory Committee, the Citizens Advisory Committee, our own board, the City Council, the Municipal Utility Committee that Councilwoman Havrda is a strong member of, the Committee for Emergency Preparedness. We got more committees right now than sometimes we're able to keep up with, but every one of them brings different perspectives to the table to ensure that we are accountable to the community and that we're doing the job our community expects out of us. So let me just start by saying, me as the leader of CPS Energy, ultimately accountable to my board and city council, Councilwoman, we're gonna have that dialogue in a very proactive and positive manner. So thank you for your letter, and thank you for the ongoing conversation we've been having. It is difficult. It is never a good time, the right time, to ask our community for additional revenue through the rate case process that we go through. We have been looking at this for the last 3 years. It's not something that is just recent. It was the right thing to do, when the pandemic hit, to put that conversation off while we were dealing with the uncertainty that the pandemic brought to San Antonio. Then Winter Storm Uri hit, and the last 10 months have been spent trying to understand, what happened and why, and how, we can do a better job as a community, and the state of Texas can do a better job as a state, to have the grid that everybody wants and expects to ensure that you have reliable power. This rate case really is about, 4 things, and Cory will, my CFO, Cory Kuchinsky, will get into all the reasons, why we need the rate increase and how we're going to spend those dollars. What I would tell your constituents, Councilwoman, is that every element of this increase goes towards our ability to provide reliable and really affordable service to our customers. Even with this rate increase, our residents will still be paying among the lowest rates in the state of Texas. And I want to, reemphasize that we have looked at this from an affordability standpoint. We originally started talking about a 10% need. We've worked with city staff who've ultimately supported our request in the manner in which we've gone about, firming up, the need and making the case. But we've moved from that 10% number down to 3.85% of a base rate increase. There's an additional 0.8% fuel costs associated with some of the fuel charges that we have paid that we believe are just and reasonable, and settlements that we've made, with gas suppliers that sold us gas. But we've got to do something with that fuel cost, because there's some really negative implications for the city of San Antonio, and CPS Energy if we don't deal with those fuel costs. Those fuel costs have to be paid by the end of the year. And so the way we're proposing doing that will allow us to do it in an affordable manner, for our customers, in a thoughtful manner for our customers. So So I just want to reiterate that, this is about, allowing our employees the opportunity to do the job that you expect of us each and every day. It is a modest increase. We've got a multi-billion-dollar budget at CPS Energy. This rate increase, brings in roughly $73 million, but it is very focused investment that we need to make in various aspects of our system to be able to continue to serve our community well. So I want to thank the council. I want to thank Councilwoman Havrda for the robust and challenging conversations that we've had over the last 2 months. I want to thank our community for their willingness to listen and allow us to educate the community on what the need is. I don't expect anybody to feel like they want a rate increase. Nobody wants a rate increase. I understand that, but I certainly want you to at least understand why it's necessary. And again, the CPS Energy is a community-owned utility. The only revenue that we have available to us to pay for what it costs us to serve the community is from our customers. And so I want to thank our customers for their patience. I want to ask you to give us a chance to rebuild trust with you in the days and years ahead. This is I know the timing is difficult, but I appreciate the community's willingness to engage in a conversation on this request, and just reassure you that every penny of this additional revenue will go back into the service that we're providing to our community. So with that, Councilwoman, thank you. Victor, thank you for allowing us to work with you to make this happen today. And I will turn it over back to Victor so we can turn it over to Cory. Thank you.
No, thank you, Rudy. And one of the final things or the last things that you said in your presentation was about nickels and dimes, and I think that's what a lot of people have in their thinking forefront. So for that, we're going to go over to Cory, who's going to explain to us with a little bit more nuance and depth what this rate proposal means and how it's going to unfold. So, Cory, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Victor. And thank you, Rudy. And thank you, Councilwoman, for hosting us. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to your district this morning. So absolutely, I got a handful of slides here that I'll step through, and then we'll save some time in the end for some questions. I'll really go ahead here and dive in to our first slide here. And it really goes to what was kind of mentioned at the beginning, talking about the Winter Storm Uri. You can't go anywhere without getting questions about it. Specifically, what have you done and are you ready for next year? So I want to talk about high level some of the things we've done, and I'll go into more detail on how the rate request is supporting some of these things. First and foremost, we have an icon there that talks about fighting for our customers. Everyone's seen the headlines that we were charged $1 billion in fuel over that week for Winter Storm Uri. I'll speak to this in a bit. We have not paid that full $1 billion. We believe over half of it was just egregious. What we have paid for is about $418 million of power and fuel costs, but we're fighting the other $587 million. That's in the courts right now, and that'll probably be ongoing for quite a bit. But the part that we have paid, I will address in a bit, is a component part of this request. But there's a lot that we can control. We can control our grid. We can control our infrastructure. And so we've done a number of steps, and I'm going to read through some of them. When you talk about our power plants, we can control our power plants. Going into this winter, we've enhanced our weatherization and freeze protection around all of our power plants. We've had a third party come in and validate those improvements as well. We've also increased our storage of natural gas, which is critical as well for in the event of cold weather. And another thing that we did, we moved all of our planned plant maintenance out of the winter months. Typically, we would do regular maintenance during the winter because we'd be ready for the summer. But we've moved all that forward. So come wintertime, every piece of steel we have in the ground will be ready and to go in the event it's needed. On the distribution network perspective, there's obviously several customers were out for days, and I was one of them that was out for 3 consecutive days. What we've done is, in the event that the state asked us to shed as much load as we did, we have gone to our outage management system, and we've added a third more circuits to that program to allow for more evenly balanced rotating outages. So instead of being out for 3 days or other neighbors being never going out, we'll have a more balanced rotation across the city where you're out 15 minutes, maybe 30 minutes and back on for a couple hours, kind of what you would expect in the event of a true rolling outage. So we've reconfigured the system in a manner that will allow us to be prepared for an event the size of Uri and a little bit bigger. So those are the things that we can control. We obviously can't control the entire state and what other generators are doing or what the supply chain looks like upstream from the natural gas suppliers, but we've taken a lot of steps to protect ourselves. And there's also future investment that I'll speak about as well to help prepare for kind of the ongoing needs for extreme weather, whether it be summer or winter. The other big thing was around communication to our customers, communicating with the city and other entities. We spent a lot of time this summer and spring specifically coordinating with SAWS, as many of you probably experienced some issues with your water pressure. We've worked with them to ensure that we've identified their critical pumping stations. And so in the event that we get a big weather event like we did, we've identified what those pumping stations are with them to ensure that we have the basic critical pumps still online. We continue to partner with the city as well from a communication perspective so that whether it be us, SAWS, or the city, in the event there's extreme weather, we can have a unified communication. And then broadly speaking, we have worked on our end to help our communication direct to customers. So we have worked on texting, emailing systems so that we can reach out to folks before an event occurs, and we can make you aware a day or two in advance. Say, hey, cold weather's coming in. Here's what you can do to prepare, and we can give kind of regular updates. And our system is now set up that in a matter of hours we can hit everyone who's got the information and manage my account. If it's up to date, we will get you. And so that's been a big improvement. So I want to start with that so that your district can know kind of the things we've done and so far, and we'll be focused on those efforts going forward as well. This next slide just gives a little bit of context. I think Rudy said it in his opening comments, but it's been 8 years since we've had our last rate request, which means the price per unit that we charge for our service hasn't changed in 8 years. Now, obviously, we keep providing service to the city and to our customers at today's cost. So it's been quite a while since we've been able to go without raising our prices. One of the reasons we've been able to do that is through significant cost savings. Over the last, actually about 10 years, we've pulled out about $900 million in our kind of cost infrastructure, so to speak. We've had a number of operational savings. We actually save an incredible amount of money just through refinancing our debt because we have a strong credit rating, and we're able to refinance our debt at a lower interest rate, and that benefits the entire community. But we've seen an incredible amount of growth in this city, in all parts of the city. We've added about 125,000 electric customers and 36,000 gas customers in 8 years. That's pretty incredible growth. And we're seeing that clip become even faster. And that's great for our city, but it does necessitate significant investment. And to the extent we keep growing, we're going to have to ensure that we've got adequate funds to support that, support the maintenance on that infrastructure and so forth. And then from a technology perspective, as a huge utility like we are underpinned by complicated technology that manages all of our systems, whether it be the operational systems or our back office systems. That technology continues to age and requires continued investment. Part of this rate request will be continued investment into those systems. Some of our systems are over 20 years old. And if you can think of any technology that's over 20 years old, and if you're still using it, what that must be like. And we have that experience in some cases. And the other big thing that's changed over the last 8 years is really cyber risk. Everyone's probably been seen it on the news. We've had to invest a lot more in terms of cyber protection for all of our technology that is obviously critical infrastructure to the city and to the state. So those are the types of things that have changed over the last 8 years. And those are some of the things that, with that context, help explain kind of what we'll be using these dollars for. On the next slide here, this just kind of summarizes what Rudy had said. There's going to be two parts of the request of council to vote on. The first part of the request is going to be what is it called a base rate increase of 3.85%. That's going to generate an incremental $73 million over an annual period. That $73 million, to give it some context, is on a planned annual budget of about $2.9 billion. So $73 million is a lot, but as Rudy mentioned, our annual budget is close to $3 billion a year. But that $73 million will be important in ensuring that we make the right near-term investments that we need to, and helps create immediate financial stability. Before I go on, I want to address our affordability discount and what we are doing. We've had a lot of conversations with our board, the rate advisory committee, city council on equity, on utility burden, and things of that nature. And we recognize that that is a long policy conversation, but the needs for this request and these initial investments, are required sooner than we're able to kind of get through all these policy discussions. So what we said in the interim is, let's still do something for those in our community who are most in need, and do two things. One, let's offset this base rate increase for our residential customers most in need who qualify for the affordability discount program. Currently, that discount is about $12.30 a month. We are proposing as part of this request to increase that by $3.84, which is about the bill impact for a residential user for that rate increase I just said on the previous slide. So now that discount would be $16.14 for anyone who qualifies. The second thing we want to do to address customers who are most in need is actually expand the program, make the net bigger. So we're also recommending to increase enrollment by 14,000 customers, which brings total enrollment to 65,000 customers. So, we think that's the prudent thing to do, and we want to make sure that in the interim we take care of folks who are most in need, and this is one of the tools in our toolbox that we can put forward to help those folks out. So this slide gives a little more detail into kind of the 4 key areas of how we'll be using that incremental $73 million. The first part there is infrastructure resiliency, but it's actually a lot of the investments I mentioned earlier in terms of preparing for another cold winter. It's continued investments into our communication technology so that we were able to reach out to our customers in a timely fashion, in a meaningful way, so that they can use that information to prepare, and we can keep them up to date on what's going on. Continued investment into the technology and that controls our outages. That's pretty complicated technology and software that helps rotate outages throughout our entire city. And so continuing to make those investments is important. And that third bullet there is upgrading our freeze protection at power plants. There's a lot of investment we've made so far this year, but there's going to be continued required investment that hasn't even been finalized from a rule perspective coming down from the state next year. So we believe we'll be making additional investments over the coming 2 or 3 years, quite frankly, to continue to harden our infrastructure. I mentioned technology earlier, so there's about 15 million of that 73 that'll go towards assessing kind of our current state and systems and helping support and replace some of these aging systems. I talked about growth. Growth is going to be a component here. There's a lot of the stuff that you and I would see, additional poles, additional wires, additional meters. That's a lot of the key infrastructure throughout our city that either needs to be put in new or replaced because there continues to be the growth inside the core. And then the last part is people. Rudy has said this a lot, actually. He can't do his job without enough people. We have about 400 vacant positions. We are down 300 people from just our last rate request 8 years ago. But yet our city's been growing by 15–20%. That is an issue for us. We held back on hiring over COVID, and we have found ourselves in a position ready to staff back up. But we have between pausing hiring and retirements, we have a significant need to fill those key critical positions. And I'm talking about folks in the field. We're talking about transmission operators, distribution operators, engineers, call center reps. These are the types of positions that we are needing to hire as part of this rate request, the folks that you would interface with on a regular basis. Part of this request actually is also to raise our minimum wage to $18 an hour, which we think is important. And there's a lot of talk about living wage, and we want to set an example for that as well. What I will state, there is, because we get these questions all the time, in this rate request, there is $0 for any incentive pay or bonus for any of our employees at CPS Energy. We have made a commitment with the city, and the city has even mentioned this at their presentations, to go back and just relook at compensation broadly in alignment with how a public utility and the city would work together. So I wanted to share that up front. We get a lot of questions on that. Okay. The second part of this request that I talked about is the Winter Storm Uri. So I mentioned at the very beginning that we've paid $418 million of that $587. Now, I'll be very clear. CPS has paid that $418 million, but we haven't recovered anything from our customers from that yet. We didn't think, the only way we have to recover that is currently through what's called the fuel adjustment on your bill. And you could find it, if you're looking at your bill, it's one line item there, because it's fuel. What we are asking our board and city council to do is, instead of us recovering it, in 1 or 2 months through that bill, is to allow us to spread that recovery out over time. We came up with that $418 million by hiring an independent third party to see what an appropriate scarcity pricing would look like for that event, and that is how we came to that number. And so if our board and city council does approve that request, it would be about $1.26 bill impact that'll be added to your fuel adjustment line per month over the next 25 years. We believe this is a modest increase compared to what you're seeing around the state and around our surrounding states for folks that were impacted by winter storm. In fact, the average bill impact for other utilities across the state and surrounding states is about $12 per month, and they're just trying to recover those dollars from their customers faster. We did not want to do that to our community. So those are the two parts. This slide here puts it all together for us. The very top line is that base rate increase that I spoke about that would generate about $73 million a year. What it means to you as a residential customer is about $3.84 per month on your bill. And that's one part of the bill. The second part of your bill is your fuel adjustment that'll be impacted, and that's about $1.26 per month. So those two parts of your bill is where you would see the increase. And when you add those together, that total bill impact from a customer perspective is about $5.10 a month. Now, I want to reiterate, our recommendation to increase the affordability discount program will offset that top line right here for customers who qualify. For those who are interested, this next slide just simply is a snapshot of the additional customer groups that we have, whether it be electric or gas. These are businesses, basically. You see small businesses, medium, and large businesses, and their bill impact, including the winter storm recovery, is all within the similar range of between 3.6 and 3.8%. It's a little higher for large commercial gas customers. Okay, from a timing perspective, just kind of where we've been. We have the rate advisory committee. They were asked back in December for their perspective on our recommendation, and the rate advisory committee with a 12-6 vote was supportive of our proposal. Our citizens advisory committee met earlier this week, and they too were asked to provide their support or vote on whether they support our recommendation or not. That was a unanimous vote by the CAC in support of that. They asked a lot of hard questions, so did the RAC. And then we will intend to go to our Board of Trustees on Monday, the 10th, to have a similar presentation. And then ultimately, we will be at City Council on next Thursday, the 13th, to ask for approval there. And the last slide I'll finish up with is just a couple of kind of key links. What I think is probably the most interesting for your constituents in District 6 is the rate information and bill estimator. What's really cool is I showed some bill impacts. However, what you can do is go on to cpsenergy.com rate case, and you can put in your unique usage and profile, and then you can get a more customized bill impact scenario for you. And so that's a new tool we haven't had before that I think is pretty helpful for customers. So I will pause there, Victor and Councilwoman Havrda, and I'll turn it back over to you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Rudy. That was, Cory. That was a lot of information. And because it's so much information, I'm sure this is sparking a lot of questions. I have some questions that I've been jotting down as we're going on, and I know that there were some questions that were submitted in advance, and our audience as well, I'm sure, will be adding questions of their own. So in the sake of getting the conversation going, I think a question that we've all heard, and I know the Councilwoman would agree with me, is the question of timing. Why ask for this rate increase now? It seems like the timing just isn't the right timing. At least that's what we keep hearing. This is not a good time to be doing this. This is not a good time to be doing this. Why are we doing this now? I'm sorry, Cory, you're muted.
Sorry, I was
There you go.
practicing my mute skills. Okay, thank you.
They're good, by the way.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Good question. We get that question a lot, and as Rudy said before, there really is no great time to ask for a rate increase. But what I'd say is, the need for our rate request was actually building before COVID even hit, and we took a number of steps to try and mitigate best we could. But we're really at a critical point where we're seeing an incredible amount of financial stress on our financial health, which could impact our credit rating. And our credit rating is actually pretty important in terms of being able to borrow very affordably, and that leads to lower bills, quite frankly. The other benefit of that is it helps the city of San Antonio out maintain their AAA credit rating, which all that is to say this city can borrow pretty affordably, and it translates to lower rates for all customers. The second thing really is investment. We are having a hard time keeping up with the needs of this community. We are short-staffed on many critical positions, and separate from that, the investment in infrastructure is needed. I mentioned earlier, $31 million is going to be invested into infrastructure resiliency. This is above and beyond investment that cities in the South haven't had to make before into their infrastructure in preparation for extreme weather events. That didn't exist before February. The utilities down the South didn't make these additional investments because you're always getting ready for summer. So those are new things that have popped up. And the last reason in trying to get this vote here before the end of our fiscal year is really being able to resolve the issue with the winter storm fuel costs that we have had independently verified that we've paid. We need a tool to allow us to spread that cost over time, and we don't have that tool. So that the second part of the vote is to really get that tool in place so that we can address that. Like I said, we recognize that it's never a great time for a rate increase. One thing that we're going to do on a go-forward basis is not wait 8 years to talk to our board and city council about this. We want to take a much more incremental, modest approach with our community. As Rudy said, be more transparent, talk about what's going on, what's changed, and things of that nature. And hopefully that'll help continue to build the trust through the community of kind of what we need the money for, how we're using it. And you'll see the benefit on the back end by having good customer service and investment in infrastructure, better resiliency, right? How do we bounce back from a severe event? We're going to do it much better than we have in the this past winter. So hopefully that helps, Victor.
Yeah. So let me see if I understand what you're saying correctly. So there were some, or there are some very real calendar pressures in place that are sort of forcing the hand to get this done now. So finish the sentence for me, because if we don't, what happens?
Right. If we don't, I would expect a high probability of having the rating agencies take negative action on us, which would lead to higher borrowing costs, which is a direct impact on our customers if we have to borrow at a higher rate. I would also expect continued struggle to keep up with growth and reliability and service levels in our community if we have to go any longer without making the appropriate investments. And I think it puts us at risk the next time we have an extreme weather event if we're not able to make the appropriate investments on a go-forward basis, at least getting this done by the end of the year.
A related question having to do with timing. I think it was one of your slides, I believe it was slide 11, that showed how this discussion over the rate increase happened rather quickly. We began talking about this in mid-December, and here we are mid-January already going for a vote. Yes, that one. Some of the people that we've been talking to out in the community are a little worried about that and a little concerned about that time frame. Why did it happen so quickly?
Yeah, well, so if you recall, we began discussions, like Rudy said, back in August, actually, and, with our board, at least, not with City Council, of course, with our board. But they were public discussions, and, we began, in August, a really deliberate conversation with the city staff. And just for folks listening, if they may not know, the City of San Antonio has the Office of Public Utilities. They're basically the our regulator that helps vet our plan before City Council actually has to vote on it. So even before we went to City Council with our first presentation in December, like you mentioned, we had spent a month and a half with city staff going through line by line of our capital plan, our O&M plan, challenging our assumptions on growth, challenging our assumptions on usage, all things that dictate kind of what our forecast would look like. And I got to tell you, Ben Garza and his team, I mean, they are incredibly good at what they do. They know our business well, and they've been really good partners. They challenged us. We took a whole different approach on how we wanted to view this investment. Basically, it's a bare bones approach. So when we came back and in December and had our first presentation to City Council, we had actually had several months of vetting with the regulator behind the scenes who's working on behalf of the City Council and our constituents. So not everyone gets to see that. So it's a good question, because I would want the community to know that there was a lot of work done behind the scenes with the city where they were challenging and vetting. So what we brought forward to the city was in fact something that was incredibly scrubbed, had recommendations in there for lower income customers who may need help needing that offset. And so the public timing here, from December to mid-January, it's about 45 days. I mean, it's about a month and a half, right, give or take. And I think that is the appropriate kind of window that actually rating agencies kind of look for utilities of our rating to have that public session kind of perspective. But I just want to assure your listeners that there's a lot of vetting that goes on, and the city staff over there is doing their job well, and they're working on behalf of the customers of CPS, the community.
Got it. So a more nuts and bolts question for the ratepayer. When they pay this additional $5.10 a month, when they get up in the morning, switch on their lights, get in their car, drive down the street, see the infrastructure, what are they getting for this? And specifically, what are they going to see when they walk out their door in the morning?
Yeah, hopefully they're going to see fantastic service and continued reliability, and in the event of extreme weather, much better resiliency. The flip side of that question is, if we don't get it, what would you see? And I think if you don't get it, what you see is you're going to see more aging poles sitting out there that we can't replace. You're going to see longer wait times when you call in, to our phones. You may see delayed response in getting outages back up. I mean, that's the perspective I think we take if we don't get this rate increase, is we're just not going to be able to keep up with the pressures and demand of the city that continues to grow and expect things from us. The other thing too is, again, no one sees the technology behind the scenes. There's too much, but that technology is aging, and that technology needs a refresh, and that will allow our customers to hopefully better interface with us as we make upgrades to our phone systems, our texting systems, make upgrades to our website, all the ways they want to interface with us that you would expect in 2022, using upgraded technology.
You mentioned something that caught my attention, scarcity pricing because of the winter storm. And I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Is there any way to, there isn't a way to guarantee that this isn't going to happen again, that we're not going to have another weather event, and that we're going to be faced with scarcity prices again? Is there something in place to make sure that we're ready for something like that? Because there really isn't a way to control that kind of pricing.
You're right, there isn't. And that's, interestingly, that's actually one of the premises of our court cases, is that there is no price gouging protection for business-to-business charging. A customer, like an end customer, is protected from price gouging, right? Like a hotel can't price gouge a customer. But there's no law that says a gas supplier can't price gouge a local utility who is obligated to buy the fuel and pass it through to their customers. So in the absence of having any rules in place, what have we done? Well, number one, from a fuel supply perspective, we increased our storage capability. So natural gas was the big part of that $1 billion. Almost $700 million of that was attributable to natural gas because the prices were just extraordinary. So if we have more supply on hand, that mitigates our need to have to buy high-priced natural gas in that moment in time. We've also put on additional price protection through some financial instruments to help protect us, again, in the absence of any legal protections. I mean, all utilities are going to be exposed to this because there haven't been any rules to protect us from that. So we've put in a number of financial products to help from a price protection perspective. We had tools in place before, but you didn't have enough for Winter Storm Uri. So we put more in to protect our customers as well. So those are two big moves. We also secured increased transportation capability to move the natural gas. So from an operational perspective, we have that. And the last thing that we've done is we've actually kind of pre-bought more baseload gas, physical gas, in advance of those months than we had before. Again, these were things we did. We're just doing them even larger in preparation for something like that. So I believe we've taken a whole number of steps to protect us against, what I call price scarcity, which there's a reasonable amount of price scarcity, then there's an unreasonable amount. And we've put a lot of steps in to protect us against both, quite frankly. So I would say we're in a fantastically better position than we were. But those risks that you talk about, those are risks that every utility in this state are still going to be exposed to, and I presume they are all taking similar action in the absence of any legal protections to them.
Great. I'm going to switch our emphasis just a little bit because I know culture and trust is a big part of what's come up in our discussions with the community. And I know Rudy has addressed this, how fostering more trust among the community is very important. Can you tell us how or what changes are being made within the culture of CPS? What does that look like within CPS? Those cultural changes that will translate into hopefully fostering more trust in the community.
Yeah, absolutely. Excuse me. I think Rudy has done a fantastic job in trying to both convey that publicly and make himself available. The folks we have at CPS Energy now are stepping into their roles because they believe in this city, they love this city. We all live here, and we want the community to feel like they know us. In terms of trust, look, we got to do our job. We got to make sure the lights stay on. We got to make sure that we communicate to you in advance of what those issues are. And we got to be able to answer questions, and we got to be able to be accountable. Rudy continues to stress, this is what CPS will look like under his leadership. We're going to be open and transparent and accountable. Building trust takes time, right? And Rudy's only been in his role for a little bit. I've been at CPS for 15 years, but I've only been in this role for 6 months. You've got a leadership team that is committed to building back this trust. And I am committed to it just as much as Rudy is. And I think, from a culture perspective, we have great employees who are devoted and committed to this. We don't like seeing the headlines. The headlines that you saw, they're not reflective of the leaders who are here. Our board is very committed to accountability as well. At our last board meeting, they also put forth a resolution for us to kind of revisit some of our policies and procedures around expenses and reporting of that and so forth. So you've got a focus from our board and our leadership on continued accountability and transparency. And I think Rudy will continue to be open to answering questions, being available, and suggestions of additional reviews and things of that nature that have been discussed. So hopefully it's a little bit of context.
No, thank you very much, Cory. I don't know, Councilwoman, do you have any questions? You're muted. I'm sorry.
Sorry. I don't right now. I would like to hear more from the community if they have any questions. I know that we have the chat, and then we had some questions that were sent in before today. Do we? I'd rather those questions get answered.
Absolutely. Well, there is. I'm sorry. There is one question that came in, and it's a little more nuanced, and I don't know if we would be able to answer a question like this right now, but it has to do with rebates that were given last year by this utility. And I don't know how accurate this is, approximately $4 million that were to be distributed. And what happened with that? I'm sure there's a chatter around the community that not all of it made its way to the customers. This is something that I guess we would have to address. But I think this is indicative of what we were just talking about, Cory.
Yeah, I think you're perhaps referring to the rebates we gave right after the storm on, depending on how long you were out. Yeah, I don't recall the total amount of what it was. I do know that we had issues back in March. You know, if a customer believes, or not believes, if a customer was out and didn't, you know, for extended period of time and didn't receive that, I know that our folks were taking those calls and going into our systems to try and look at that. I will tell you, that issue that happened is a function of technology that needs investment. It was difficult for us to try and isolate, you know, those customers, and we did the best, you know, we could, you know, pretty manually, you know, with our team members who spent a lot of time doing that. But I understand that was not a great experience either. So lesson learned on that. But if there is a customer who specifically did not get a rebate, who was out for an extended amount of time in your district, please route them through our crew team, and we will get them hooked up with the right person, and we'll do a specific, unique deep dive into them.
Great. What I'd like to ask maybe someone from the CPS team, if there are questions. I know there were some questions that had come in prior to this meeting. If you can enter those in the chat, I think that would be very helpful for us, just to put those messages directly into the chat so we can see them. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask you another question, just to follow up to something you said earlier about how you were making changes to the grid, Cory. How is that going to work?
So it's pretty interesting, right? We have key circuits across our entire city. There are about 600 or so. We had about a third of those designated as circuits that we could rotate outages for. You know, non-critical, so, you know, hospitals weren't on them and things of that nature. But a third of our circuits was enough to meet any request that the state has historically put upon CPS Energy in terms of shedding load. 2011 was the biggest last, you know, winter storm prior to Uri, where the state had to do rolling outages. So once Uri came, you know, what we did is we relooked at all those circuits again, you know, still identified what those critical customers were on various circuits, right? Hospitals, you know, talked with saws, right, where their critical pumping stations were, things of that nature, and did a whole refresh of looking at our entire circuits. And we added another third circuits to the available pool of customers that can be rotated off. Now, that is helpful. There's more coming that we are still doing. Sometimes we've got these super long circuits and a lot of homes are on that. So you can't, so if there's a hospital on that and you've got, you know, hundreds of other non-critical customers on that, if that's a critical circuit because of this one issue, well then I can't drop the rest of that load. But we have investment as part of this rate request into technology, you can call it reclosers, that you can break up these circuits into subparts now. And this will allow us even in the future, even more precision into how we can manage rolling outages. And there's about $10 million in our budget for the next couple of years to make those investments in this technology on a go-forward basis. And this is, I mean, that's an example of a really great behind-the-scenes technology investment that helps improve our grid and allow us to manage rolling outages even better than I think we'll do this winter. And these are investments that other utilities are making as well, because it helps add an extra layer of precision to that activity. So anyways, hopefully that helps, but I mean, that's how you do it. You add more circuits to it, you review the customers and make sure that the critical ones still receive power, and then you continue to make investments with this technology on some of those longer circuits so you can break them up into smaller bite-sized chunks and have more precision in those rolling outages.
Got it. We do have several questions now from the community. This one is from Michael Cormans, and he's asking, are the coal plants at Bronick Lake and Calaveras Lake still operable for an alternate backup system?
I'm not sure by alternate backup system. I mean, our plants are ready to go in normal operating systems, so they'll all be ready for this winter season. From an alternate perspective, maybe they're talking about switching fuel. So in some of our peakers, we can switch from natural gas to fuel oil, which was actually something we had to do during the storm. When you can't get natural gas, if I can burn fuel oil, then we have a couple of days storage of that. So that capability still exists, and that's a mitigation. And maybe there's a discussion around. Well, there's been discussions kind of in the media about switching our coal plants, like our Spruce 2 or 1, to natural gas. If that was the question, that is an ongoing conversation we'll have with the board and the rate advisory committee and so forth, and no decision's been made on that.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to understand what the question was asking, and you did touch on it. But I'm wondering if the question wasn't more related to, are those two power plants operable, the Bronick and Calaveras?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe I think the question may have been in case of a power outage, could those be used to put more power into the grid?
Oh, yeah. If we are in a situation where the state is asking us to reduce load, it's highly probable that all of our plants are already running in order to do that, if that makes sense. Yeah. So they probably would have been on in that instant. And the issue would have been it's not enough for the state, and we're still being asked to reduce.
Yeah.
I'll ask you, just to expand on that, there may be some confusion because I know there's been a call for the shutdown of the coal plant. So, and as I understand it, there is not to get off topic, but there is a plan to shut them down. Is that completely shut down? Is that the switch can be turned on if we need that extra power? Maybe that's part of the question. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. So as you're aware, Reed Williams, who's our chair on the rate advisory committee, put forth a proposal at, I think, our last council meeting we had with you, which I believe is a 3-year plan. He had an 18-month kind of landmark, and then at 3 years, I think, was his kind of full transfer. That plan hasn't been fully discussed with our board yet, and the rate advisory committee hasn't discussed it fully with Reed Williams. So those conversations aren't final, but there's absolutely an appetite to hammer in on a plan that will, in fact, address those issues. But in the near term for this winter, all those plants will still be up and running. But what we'll have to discuss with our board and rate advisory council is if you take those off, what do you replace it with, right? And so that's the conversation we need to have. That's the policy conversation we need to have.
We have another question from an audience member. Carol Sullivan is asking, how do you determine who the critical customers are?
Yeah, I'm probably not the best person to answer that question, but I'll tell you what I know. It's kind of twofold. We identify, key infrastructure like the military, hospitals, and things of that nature. But we also rely on our customers as they sign up with us to let them know, if you've got some, technology in your home that is for health needs that's critical, you sign up with us and you let us know, and then we acknowledge that and we put that on our maps. So it's twofold. The obvious kind of critical city infrastructure we know about, and then we rely on our customers to let us know if they've got a medical situation or whatever that is. We'll have that dialogue with them. We note it on their account, and we make sure that they're protected as well. So they call out to your customer, to your constituents. If they have an issue, please call us 353-2222 and do let us know, and we will mark that on your account to ensure that we continually get that updated. It's a great question because I want customers to know that. Yeah.
So that number for customers to call is 210-353-2222. Did I get that correct?
Yes, and then, yeah. Mhm.
Okay, very good. I don't see any more questions on the queue, and actually we're like 4 minutes away from our hard stop time. So I think this has been time well spent with you and with our audience, trying to get as much information as we can in advance of this of this question before our city regarding a rate change at CPS Energy. Like I said, unfortunately, we've run out of time. It's Saturday morning, and we promised a hard stop at 11. So thank you all for participating. Thank you to Rudy Garza and to Cory Kuchinsky. Thank you to Councilwoman Havrda, of course. And thank you to CPS Energy and District 6 teams for helping us put this together, and for hosting, for the Councilwoman for hosting this this meeting, and to all the participants who joined us this morning. As always, please stay safe, stay warm. And I don't know if a Councilwoman has any parting remarks.
I just, thank you for everybody that was able to attend today. We are recording this. Victor, correct me if I'm wrong, but we can repost it. If anybody is subscribed to the newsletter, I'll also put it in the newsletter, any links that we can have, so that you can share this with your neighbors. I'm sure y'all will continue to have questions. We couldn't answer all the questions in an hour. Please reach out to us. It really is my #1 job to communicate your concerns to the city, and of course give you information going back the other way. So please don't hesitate to call us, email us, message us on social media, so that we can get your questions answered. And thank you so much, everybody. Please stay safe and warm.
Yes, we'll be talking again soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.